presence. So welcome and tell everybody how this all began and why we're even sitting here together today.
Of course. Well, thanks again for having me. Honestly, there's nowhere I'd rather be today. So it is much appreciated. My gosh. Well, we were honestly kind of joining of forces straight away. I literally was walking, it was a something of a mixer. Um, Walked into the room after a long day too, right? We were all going about, walked into the room, and literally the spark happened immediately. I think you were maybe not the very first person I saw, but one of the first. We locked eyes, and from there, it was just a beautiful connection. Everything that followed our words, energy, we had already set the stage simply when we saw each other. And I know, I was just saying this to you too. I'm like, I know that sounds like, okay, that's quite the story there, but it's true. It's so true, and it was a beautiful thing. And of course, today, talking about presence, there is certainly the argument to be made that a big part of that spark was, might I say so myself, a result of both of us really intentionally and naturally exercising really great and welcoming presence to each other.
Amazing. So it's like an energy. Is that what this is? Is presence like an energy?
So, presence is ultimately, especially how I'm approaching it, right? And when I say how I'm approaching it, it is in service of enabling others to understand how to discover what presence is, but certainly practice it. So I like to say, really at the most foundational level, Corliss, presence is how we show up and how we show up visually and then certainly energetically as well. And how we show up is the first signal that others receive from us and then determine from that, how do I feel about this person? Do I like them? Do I trust them, etc. And from there, it is how I'm going to treat them. So presence is that really kind of front line that we all have and can all optimize and be creative with to tell others how to treat me in any given space that we're walking into.
Wow. Okay. I just literally love this. I'm so glad you're here. This is such a
Yeah.
different conversation, so meaningful to me. So, what I'm wondering immediately, right off the bat, so I'm guessing my guess will be too, is it like a first impression? And does it continue past the first time you meet somebody?
Ah, that last point is such a good one. So the answer is yes and yes. So yes, it is first impression. I'll put it this way. So first off, we hear that first impressions, like we've heard these sound bites everywhere, right? First impressions happen in moments. They stick. You can't have a second first impression, which alludes to the
Mhm.
latter part of what you said. And all in all, Corliss, it's true. These things do happen quickly. They do stick, they kind of follow us even throughout the interaction with us. And what it comes down to is I am focused on, in terms of presence, really as I noted before, the front lines, the appearance aspect. Okay. Because when it comes down to it, perception, we have five senses and it starts visually. The others can happen real fast after, right? We might hear them and then whatever, they might have perfume, we smell them, like there's all these different things going on. But that first stop, those milliseconds we hear about in different studies, are that visual signal. And at any given point, we're using the appearance, the presence of someone to constantly validate those moments with them, the words they're saying, how they're moving, and their competence, all these different things. So yes, it very much is the most powerful part of that first impression.
And then how do you practice it afterwards? So just if you take me back, so even our first meeting, I
Yeah.
remember, so I definitely sensed when you talked about our eyes met, and I was like, oh, he's someone I want to meet. Like, I can't wait to get around this guy. I just want to meet him. I'm gonna make my way there for sure.
Yeah.
And it was like we were old friends almost instantly. I was like, this is just such a great synergy. Like there was just such a great connection right off the bat. But I also remember thinking he's so polished, he looks so
Mhm.
great, but you were also super warm and welcoming. Like you greeted me right away, and there was like an energy that came along with it too. It wasn't just how you appeared, right? Or just a sense that I got.
Right.
So is that something that you can develop if you don't have it? So visually, it's important, like how you show up.
Yeah.
But what about after that?
Yes. So there is, I'm like, I almost want to decode our interaction more, but you said it well. It's true. It was like, and it was so great. We got vulnerable together so quickly. It was just really special. But um, your listeners are like, all right, all
Okay.
right, enough already. But it's
Well,
true,
maybe they've
especially
had that too.
yeah, well, I'm sure. So it's absolutely something you can develop and practice. When it comes down to it, there's kind of a few things I want to mention, So on one end, I'll get very quickly pragmatic. How I help my clients and communities practice and develop presence is five core modules. I'll name them off very quickly. There's a foundation, our aesthetic identity, very much who have we been? Who are we becoming? How do we actually develop that into our visual persona, right? A lot of times it lives in our hearts and minds and whatnot, but believe it or not, we can have a lot of fun and really powerful experience bringing those to the forefront so that those are the signals you're sending. From there, it's the tools we use to deliver it. So our personal style and polish, which is what it sounds like, literally. But the clothes we put on, the jewelry we
Yes.
put on, all that
Yes.
physical finesse, which is I like to call it, which is yes, body language, but it's far more than do's and don'ts. And it's much more about the unique opportunities we can use to make an intriguing impression through moving elegantly. Much of it is inspired by things like ballet, even pageantry, diverse arts and culture. And then there's situational presence, super, practical, where how do I adjust to different communities that I'm entering? How do I stand out while fitting in? Very kind of nuanced aspect. So those are kind of the core areas of practice, just to showcase, yes, you can practice it. So I'll pause there, but it is a very practical, thing.
Approach to it.
Yeah,
So I'm actually going to ask you to expand on them a little bit more. So
please.
take us through them each one by one. So
Sure.
let's say I'm a listener. So okay, I am a listener because I'm listening to you going, I want to know this.
Yeah, right.
So what's happening for me right now is like remembering that sometimes I get lax in, say, my physical appearance. So I work from home. And because I work from home, it's like much easier to be in comfy clothes,
Right.
not worry about doing my hair or makeup. Only recently I started actually recording these podcasts to be like visual as well, so that I
Mhm.
can post them to YouTube as well. And for those who would rather find it there than actually listen to audio only.
Yeah.
And if I'm really honest, part of that was that I could record in my pajamas if I wanted to, which is not
Right. Right.
which is not great. I fell into that like almost like a slump with that and not thinking about how important it is to like get up, you know, get myself together, do my hair, do my makeup. It makes me feel better when I
Yeah.
do. But I fell into this kind of pattern when I was during COVID, and it just kind of stayed. It became a habit in the way that I was being. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there might be people who are listening that are like, oh, I've kind of become slack in that.
Mhm.
And maybe you could walk us through these steps and just give us a few things, almost like as if it's like steps for how
Yeah.
you walk us through. Give us a teaser of your course and your programs and how you help people.
Yeah. So one is I'm so glad you bring this up because listen, this is about real life, meaning this is not about being perfect and statuesque and all these things all the time. Now, eventually, sometimes you build reflexes and you can, project some of these really impressive kind of everyday things. But I want to make that very clear as well. This is not just about some glow up. This is not about changing yourself. Actually quite the opposite. Now, let's see. I think on one end, the you mentioned, sometimes whatever it may be, you're not necessarily motivated or ready, or you have children or life to be, show ready all the time. Now, one thing is that presence is ultimately really aligned with the science really of beauty. Beauty takes a lot of forms. A math equation can be beautiful because it's solving so much, right? And so little, or certainly a beautiful face or landscape. So I make that clear because how I work and, in my, whether it's a master class or coaching client or whatnot, I use a framework I've developed myself called NeuroPresence. Sounds kind of fancy, but there's also studies of neuroaesthetics that are hard hitting, academic studies and areas. And I mention this because it is in that science, ultimately, Corliss, that we can actually bring this down in a really powerful way to real life. Because with science, our brains ultimately are interpreting different types of beauty in different areas of the brain. So we are seeing clothes, much like we see art. Faces, as you might imagine, are an incredibly unique thing for humans, right? Like we gauge a lot from the face and from the eyes first, and so on and so forth. Movement is a unique part of the brain that measures spatial awareness. So, what I'm describing to you is that we have actually all these opportunities to dial up or down the different parts that are attracting us to one another. So what's really nice is that when I said you don't have to be perfect all the time, you don't. Now, you may remember before our chat, I said your lashes look beautiful. Well, guess what? What I didn't say was that that's a really high ROI tactic for presence because our face, in those milliseconds, right, that we're seeing one another, our face is one of the first things, and the eyes is the first of that first. And so when I've told clients, I'm like, listen, if you're going out, but you can't do A, B, or C, right? You can't put on this or do this with your hair, whatever. We can distill it down to these high priorities, these among the different aspects of your presence, to really make an impact on others or to really ensure that you are delivering a presence that others, even non-consciously, can be drawn to and again append those really important attributes to you.
So good. So there's the visual part of it. So give
Yeah.
us the practical steps.
Okay.
So like, ways that somebody, because I think that some people that listen to this podcast, probably
Yeah.
many, often maybe are like really working on their self-esteem, trying
Sure.
to be empowered, trying to feel good. They want to show up. So you're telling us that it's actually a science. So
Yes, very
and
much.
can you build that on that a little bit? Take the science of it that is like actual facts, and
Yes.
how can we build that into our lives right now if we're someone who's maybe got lower self-esteem or really working on that or trying to feel good enough, in our
Right.
lives. How do you do it?
Absolutely. Yes, the science, it can be intimidating or it can mean a lot of things to people, but it's truly liberation when it comes to our presence. And when you mention things like self-esteem, which again is a very real thing. I mean, that's like a duh, but for anyone. Now, what I want to note is that you just heard me say non-conscious, right? I could say that 50 more times, Corliss, because so much is happening non-consciously, semi-consciously, and then consciously. So the conscious is when we go and we're thinking, okay, I like that person's shirt or this or that, and kind of actually thinking about things. That's where self-esteem can happen because we start to make conclusions. Someone's going to think I don't look good in this, or that my shoulders are funny, or just you name it, right?
Pick
But
ourselves.
yeah, but we're thinking about really eventually I want to determine the percentage, but it's a small percentage of what's actually producing the end result that we're getting with people. End result, how they treat us, how beautiful they actually think we are, etc. So what I mean is that there are really like that, like beauty is not really in the eye of the beholder. Eventually, like, yes, we can start to gain preferences. It's objective. Okay. There are things that we classically hear, okay, having the right dimensions for it's kind of personal styling 101, put these dimensions together. They're drawing from what is science. When we can see a balance in someone's shoulders or this or that or the way things are put together, it immediately is like a win. It's actually releasing dopamine in our
Right.
brain. So,
Right.
so, with that science, not so much aside, but being said, we should absolutely understand that you, to your listener, are beautiful and others absolutely think so. You don't need to wait for the words of affirmation. You don't need to wait for someone to tell you you're beautiful. You don't even need to wait for the really obvious signals, someone, I don't know, looking at you endearingly and smiling or whatever. You should really, really, really know that your beauty is being interpreted by others, sometimes without them even fully knowing it. What happens is it manifests in how they treat you. In some situations, these things can be very lurking variables, Corliss. Even how they treat you, like, okay, they still might be sort of neutral with you, but did you then get that promotion? Did they then, I'm now thinking in corporate realm because I was just working with someone, but did they then unlock that additional budget for you? Like there are all these little small to big things in our workplace, in our personal life that don't happen right away. But I just want to quadruple down on, I'm telling you, at a scientific level, you are quite literally releasing dopamine in others' brains through your absolute unique presence, your unique style, your unique beauty. You're releasing dopamine, you're increasing their memory and recall around you. And with that being said, I say this all the time because it's true and I freaking love it, is that you are a reward to others. Dopamine, do we know, we may know what that is. That's the feel good chemical, that's released in many different ways. It's sort of universal, but it's a good thing. And in that way, you are truly a reward to others. And starting to understand that and believe that can be a big game changer for many. Um, and there are also I'll just say one more quick thing because I was just speaking to someone, a full-figured woman, and she has self-esteem issues and just, around her figure and even, of course, she has her own history with her weight and these different things and whatever. And, there is cultural standards, fine, but as I said, that's a small slice. In many ways, the science even shows us, and based on what I've seen in interactions and whatnot, a full-figured woman or person actually has a one-up on us. More is more when it comes to visual stimulus. So, in fact, if you have a fuller figure, you actually have a one-up. We can work and ensure that you quite literally are giving people more beauty to appreciate and love you for. And I mean that wholeheartedly. That's not just a virtuous statement.
Oh my gosh.
That was a lot, I know, but
This is such a great reframe. I'm
yeah,
loving this so much.
yeah,
So really, I mean, oftentimes probably more common knowledge. So what I'm really pulling out of this, and this
yeah,
is seriously fascinating conversation for
a
me
lot.
and to learn from you. So usually people talk about self-love, which is like loving yourself
Mhm,
and
mhm.
how you feel about you. You're making a connection between self-love and presence
Yeah.
and the science. Is that what I'm getting here, that it's like there, it's actually scientific, you're actually projecting that
Hmm.
love yourself. So really we
Yeah.
have control over that, about how we feel about ourselves, and then we project that into with presence.
That's right. And when what you just said, and then when you were talking about earlier, classic sort of products of the pandemic where we're kind of breaking out of being super comfortable and whatnot. A common notion, I won't go too deep into this, but I'll just mention it, is like, oh, they won't care, or this is good enough, or
Right.
whatever. So I'm going back to the self-love part, and that is that when you of course, are prioritizing your presence. And again, this can sometimes just be simple things. It can be the simple step of I'm putting falsies on today.
Right.
I'm put
Right.
right, let alone it just depends on the moment. But putting in that effort is signaling to yourself and even more so because we're talking about the impression you're making to others, that I care about myself, one, but what really gets people drawn to you, and it's just the other side of the coin. They aren't different. They're one plus one equals two, is that they're saying, or you're saying to them, I care enough about you and our time together to look and appear the way I do with you. And,
Hmm.
and that is what is really powerful. The signals are almost one to one, as I mentioned, what it means to you to do that, and kind of what we hear about all the beautiful things about embodiment and put on the heel and put on so that you feel good. And then how you feel good makes you look good. Yes. What's really under that is the signal that people receive of they care enough about me, because we're kind of selfish people, right? Like, and that's okay. That's okay, right? So, with that said, that's how we're actually thinking. We're thinking they care enough about me to be showing up in this way, their best. And then kind of they care enough about themselves. So, um, with that being said, we sometimes think of our presence, and this comes back to self-esteem too, of being vain or something, or I'm being
Right.
vain, or I'm, not at all. Your vanity, so to speak, is again, it's a gift to others. You're actually doing a service. Okay? You are doing a public service when you walk out of that door, no matter your shape, no matter your background, no matter your context that you're coming from. I'm telling you, you are doing the world and the people around you a service by being a little vain, aka intentional, and doing your best to showcase your highest self and your most unique self and tastes.
Oh, what you just said there. That's like tweet tweet moment. I
Yeah,
think
it's
Oprah says that. It's like you are doing your best to, or what did you say? You said showing up as your best to bring your best. What did
Yeah,
you say?
I'm like, what did I say? No, I know what I said. In my mind, I'm like, what's the cleanest anecdote
Yeah.
here? But ultimately, that showing up as your best is actually doing a service to the world. You are providing a gift to others. It is anything but vain. It is anything but selfish. In fact, and you could probably connect the dots here, it's selfless. Think about when you actually get yourself together and you're like, in some ways, sometimes in your heart, you're like, this isn't for me. This is for the situation. Like, I'm doing all this so that I can, because this boardroom demands it or whatever. But um, uh, that aside, the point is that you truly are never being vain. It is always a gift to others, to the world, and certainly to you as well, when you are prioritizing your presence and putting in sometimes very, very little, sometimes a lot of incremental effort in putting yourself together.
I was just thinking that word effort actually. It's like when
Yeah.
you put the effort into yourself, even if it's like tiny bits,
Yeah.
you are literally, that you're important to me. This is
Yeah.
important to me. I'm going to bring this together with a story because I haven't
Yeah.
thought about this for probably 20 years. But I
Yeah.
remember being 19 years old, working at this job in this retail store, and they did layoffs. I was one of the layoffs. And no, it wasn't a layoff. Sorry, that was a different thing. No, what this was there was a management position that was coming available. That's what it was. But I was on holidays and I didn't really want the job.
Yeah.
It was going to be way more responsibility. Remember, I'm not even 20 years old at this point.
Right.
I remember getting called for the interview. I went to the interview in denim shorts and a little t-shirt, not looking like a manager at all. And I remember the boss who was interviewing me saying, "This is how you come to an interview." And I was like, "Yeah." But thinking back, it was because I really didn't want that. I didn't want to bring my best because I actually didn't want
Yeah.
it. So what you're saying here is like when we do that for ourselves, when we kind of, put some effort in to bring ourselves to that, we're actually bringing our best to whatever it is that we're about to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the embodiment aspect, which, there are many predecessors that are active right now that root even their work in embodiment, right? And just the idea of stand up straight and you'll feel, those things are very much an aspect of what's going on no doubt. And what the key is too, to kind of remind us, because we went through the modules, but just to remind listeners as well, is that, the visual is everything that's visual about us. So yes, it's again the personal style and polish, but it's how we move, of course, how we're communicating with our eyes, right? All of these different things. And you can imagine in any given scenario, you might have a lot of different chances to adjust these different levers, again, of the physical language, of your style, etc., to meet the moment. There's I won't tell the whole story, but it's a one sort of fun aspect is I was working with a doctor, new, kind of newly minted, out of residency, and she was having some issues. She has pink hair, Corliss. Now, it's lovely. It's not, well, it can be any type of pink, but just for context, it was this kind of pastel thing and had become part of who she was, lovely woman. But she was facing some resistance, a lot of it unspoken, right? Asking for second opinions. People were asking for a different doctor somewhere, all these things. And I can tell you the other conditions were, fairly stable. She wasn't some rude person or whatever, just for context. Um, and so, without going into the whole story, there were some practices that we did that were even around, listen, when you have your white coat on, these are ways that you can tuck it and sit. These are ways that we walk into the room, turn with your head first, let your body follow. And this isn't just like, oh, because that's so pretty to do. Again, there are signals in our mind, just like when we see beautiful ballet dancers dancing in unison, they light us up. They can bring us to tears sometimes. You can actually distill down little bits of that in your day to day and delight people and actually create an environment where they trust you, treat you well. So, without going deep into it, I just want to mention that, yeah, there are so many little opportunities to create those conditions for yourself and how others are, seeing and treating you.
We just need the awareness. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
first, which is what this conversation is. So it always begins with awareness. And it's like kind of assessing that and then being like, okay, what could I possibly change here that's going to get me a different result?
Yeah.
It's really, I'm hearing a lot and it kind of pulling it back. It's just like how you carry yourself and
Yeah.
being aware of that. So it's like, let's be really aware of that. And there is actually some science that goes along with this, but it starts with you. I do want to ask you about this though.
Yeah.
In the real life, okay,
Yes.
so we're real life people and it's not always pretty. you know is this about showing up for other people? So I'll just give you an
Mm.
example. In my relationship, I want to show up as real me. I don't always want
Yeah.
to have to be perfect. I want to show up in my relationship as who I am. And yet sometimes, there's that song Sharp Dressed Man. Every woman's crazy
Oh,
for sharp dressed man.
ZZ Top, baby. I love it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So
I love
that
it.
song,
Yeah.
it's true. It is actually true that when he shows up, sharp dressed man, for me. So, I mean, obviously, I want to love him in all parts of him. I want him to love me in all parts of me, which means sometimes it's not so pretty and not so sharp dressed, but there is a different feel when he, goes that extra mile to like be the sharp dressed man or
Yeah.
puts on his sports coat, and he just looks so great or clean shaven or whatever. So talk to us about that healthy balance because we want real life. Everybody wants real people. Everybody wants authenticity. I want authenticity. I want to see who you really are, not putting on some facade. So
Right.
how does that relate to presence?
Yeah, that's great. Well, one thing that I just love about what I do, and this happened very early on when, like back in the day when I was collecting this natural and what became studied literacy in this space, and I had realized, I thought, oh, what's beautiful is that this is a lifelong practice, Corliss.
Mm,
Lifelong, which means you don't have to be perfect all the time because we have a lifetime of opportunities to make great impressions on others. Literally, as long as you are interacting with other humans up until the day you cross over, out of the earth, you have an opportunity to deliver a great presence in moments small and large. So, with that said, literally, it just becomes a numbers game. As many as you can catch with a great presence, with as many of these factors at play as possible, awesome. But it's not going to happen all the time. For
Mhm.
some, you can get in a mode where you can have some baseline of literally like as simple as your posture, like becomes great all the time, like awesome. You have great posture all the time. But I like to lay that foundation because it's a beautiful part of this. There's no expiration on um, uh, you know, practicing this and having the opportunity. Um, I think that there is, I'm thinking about additional aspects here. Like again, we have these different say levers, and they can all go up on basically trade-offs where if you're not going to be in your favorite clothing that day, there are just simple things you can do with your body to kind of strike that balance, etc. But going back actually to your one of the first things you said in our discussion around like, you know, not to put words in your mouth, but sort of around like, can you make another first impression? Or like, do you have an opportunity, right, to kind of change it or what have you? Yes. So going back to you and your hubby, right, like it's ultimately a matter of quality time in regard to creating additional first impressions, which, I like to say additional, not a second impression, but or morphing that impression. So the thing is that a lot of times in our life, we don't have a lot of time with people when it comes down to it. So that's why we want to capitalize. But if you don't have a lot of time, try to create moments for more time with them. And this is just without going too deep, this is just the matter, as you can imagine, of the more time you spend with someone, the more they're going to be able, the more signals you can send them, the more warmth you can share with one another. So again, with your husband, it's like you all are spending a lot of time together. So yes, he's going to have moments that delight you, but because you are in each other's hearts and are, sharing your life and whatnot together, you have this benefit of time where you can kind of like totally break all the rules, so to speak, or all the best practices and
Mhm.
not have it necessarily like sabotage their impression of you, right? So it comes
Yes.
down to kind of time spent.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and taking the making the effort, like even if it's every once in a while. So I presence, the foundation of the word must be being present. So it's like really being
Yes.
present to yourself and being present to those around you
Yeah.
and kind of having that conscious effort. Not always are we aware of what's non-conscious, but
Yeah.
consciously kind of interrupting those patterns a little bit instead of just getting into a slump of like, I'm here with my guy again, and I just whatever. He's seen me at my worst, so I'll just keep being at my worst, I guess.
Right.
We don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You don't want to. And same for them as well. I shared a earlier in life story, but I actually have to share a story because it's
Please.
really in relation to what's happening right now because it actually happened yesterday.
Oh,
So I had been really working on I belong in every room that I walk into,
right.
carrying myself that way and just really stepping into an identity of like I am here, not in a vain kind of way, but like
No.
I have
No.
something to bring, and giving myself permission to like be that confident, and I bring something to the table, and I belong in every room I walk into. I belong on every stage I stand on. My voice matters. So,
Yes.
it's been a conscious effort to do that. And I hope somebody hears this and realizes this is something you can develop. I've had to develop this. And yesterday, I was like, I left a meeting, and this meeting was with someone very significant, very important,
Mhm.
very accomplished. And I realized I left that meeting and I got in the car and I was like, wow, who have you become? My presence with her was so real and relatable, but confident and purposeful. And I was very interested in what she had to say, the way I carried myself. I showed up in heels and a blazer, very much me, like I was just myself. But
Yeah.
it was like, I'm sitting at the table with an extraordinary woman, and we are sharing an extraordinary conversation because I feel like I have that in me to give as well, which means she mirrored it right back to me. It was
Right.
incredible. And the
Right.
success of that meeting was like an under that's it's understatement to say it was extraordinary. So on so many levels, not only at the outcome of what I got out of that meeting, but also with just how deeply we connected as human beings, because we were very matched in like owning it, owning our presence, owning our
Yeah.
energy, owning what we brought
Right.
to the table.
Right.
So
Absolutely. I mean, dare I say, I'm like, maybe there was a ounce of that, with our story too, right? But
yes.
it's so true. And my gosh, we could talk about the worthiness of being in spaces as well. I'll tell you, as I've now gotten more separated from full time in corporate, one of the most beautiful aspects was like rehumanizing very senior leaders. Now I'm just like, I mean, I'm not saying you're no, please, I work with
No,
them. Like,
no.
forgive me, do not, but they are very, but you know what I mean? It's like, oh, wow, it kind of levels it. So just the idea of being around important people, whether you belong, it's like, hell yeah, you belong, Of course, once you enter and what you do with it, the opportunities you can take is kind of what we're describing. But it's such a beautiful story. And you mentioned so many things that um, are integral to presence. Even when you said, I showed up in my blazer and heels, and that's part of your aesthetic identity. Aesthetic identity is your true style, but the discovery of it again is more about where you've been, your goals, where you're becoming. And that shows in the ease of wear with things and all this stuff. So whether it was that or the fact that I forget the word you said, but it's very much a like compounding situation, very fast. They sense it
Yeah.
in you, they give it back to you, and it's like the sky's the limit. And then you net out with this interaction that you just described.
Hmm. I do think that we're mirroring it because
Yeah.
when you are not very confident
Yeah.
and you're like not very in presence with yourself, and
Right.
you show up with that kind of energy, you kind of withdraw, you're not really looking at them, like all those things, all those signals
Yeah.
scientifically give a
Oh,
signal, do they not?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they uh, give such a signal, and this is where there's obviously a slew, kind of a long roster of practices that play into interactions. I am not for example, speaking or communications coach or expert. I mean, I have expertise in it, but right, there's a whole like that's important. That plays on it, but our presence from the appearance aspect or physical presence, as we mentioned before, is that first ribbon cutting, and it sets the stage, the tone for how you both interacted, and it becomes this proof point for your spoken word too. So with every word you were saying, and then probably being delighted by what you were saying, they were confirming it with how strong your presence and appearance was, and it just becomes this like gangbusters, beautiful cycle going on in moments, let alone several minutes or an hour or what have you. And you net out, in many ways as you did.
Yes, I sure did. Now, I think, okay, I have three final closing questions I ask of
Yes.
every single guest. I don't think I
Okay.
actually prepped you on them, so it'll be off the cuff for
Oh,
you.
good. Love
Oh,
it.
good. Yeah. I believe that you can handle anything that comes your way. I really do. But I want to ask you one more thing. So, what's one thing that you hope that listeners will feel or remember the next time when they're in front of other people or they walk into a room that maybe they're uncomfortable? What's like one thing that you really hope that they'll feel or remember?
I hope that they will remember that they are truly a gift to everyone that they are around and in front of, because it is proven that all different aspects of you, whether you are in love with them, confident in them, or you have low self-esteem about them, they are being interpreted positively by others and quite literally releasing dopamine. Please remember that you are a gift to others in how you're showing up. And I think you should feel really powerful because of that. When you can actually, in someone's brain, again, before all the cultural biases and all that crap,
Mhm.
if you can understand that you're actually releasing feel-good chemicals and stoking positivity in other people's minds, you should feel really powerful um, uh, about that. So I think feel powerful and remember you are truly a gift to the world and to others.
We've been conditioned, haven't we? We've been conditioned by generations before us and by cultures. The other day, I actually heard a woman talking about her body image.
Yeah.
Now, this was specific to her body image, and she was sharing about how she started looking outside of North America and how she started looking that, like, say, in Jamaica, a
Yeah.
fuller body is actually really beautiful and respected. So different cultures have different ways of seeing things,
Yeah.
and we have been conditioned to believe a certain way. So, what you're teaching us here today is to recognize that that exists and that we have choices and that we're beautiful and that we can bring that to the world in a beautiful, energetic, present kind of way, and it actually impacts the world in a beautiful way.
Yes, and you can practice it, have fun practicing it. It is not about changing yourself. It is not compromise, it is optimize. And optimize is still not changing yourself. We all have this body, we put clothes on it, we move, and even I'm even talking to those of us that can't move like every one of it. Well, there's some opportunity, whether it's your face, your hands, your legs, or all of it. So what I'm saying is that we have these beautiful innate tools, and there's a lot of fun and a lot of power in discovering how to leverage them and to really express your full self through how you're moving, how you're displaying yourself to the world. So there's something you can do about it too, and it's not changing yourself.
So good. It's making you more of who you already are. We're
Yeah,
just building on that, right?
right.
Beautiful. Is there anything else before I ask you the three closing questions that you really feel like needs to be said?
I just would say that you are one of one. Don't forget that. Literally, no one. People might have similar experiences. They might have, there's probably someone across the country that looks a lot like me or a lot like you, whatever, but no one, not one person is you. Not one person has the experiences you've had or the ambitions you're about to tackle. And with that said, I think that's another kind of add-on is just you should remember that and feel that and because that is ultimately when you're able to do that, that makes presence quite a bit easier. But I just want your listeners to remember you are one of one. The world needs you, and we're ready for you. The world is your runway. Step into your power.
Oh, so good. No wonder I just loved you at hello. That's
Here
it.
we
We speak
are.
it right to my soul. It's so good. So good. And I know the listeners are going to love it as well. Now, I'm going to put it in the show notes, but where would you like people to reach out to you to like learn from you and to continue connecting with you? Where should they go?
Yeah, site and LinkedIn are great. So website is Evan, Evan, Weiner, Weiner.com. And then Evan Weiner on LinkedIn. It's more likely than not that I'll be right up there pretty quick when you type it in.
Okay, awesome. I love your website. I'm just saying. I've looked at it.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Check out the website. That's I mean, I think listen, you're getting the real me right now, absolutely. But we were just talking too about your conference and how much fun when we're in person doing the thing. The website is like a quick look into, oh, I see. I got it. I see that. I see the energy here. So yeah, check it out.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And those courses definitely, I actually want to
Yeah.
sign up. So I'm going to need to
Yeah.
do it. I'm going to need to do it because I need more Evan in my life.
Yeah.
So the three closing questions, because this is a leadership podcast. So from
Great.
my perspective, leadership is about impact and influence. We're always impacting and influencing people around us. And that's why I called this tag or the tagline on this is that it's a real leadership podcast. So from
Yeah.
your perspective, what does leadership mean?
Oh, I think leadership again, so I can't help but go. my reflexes like go to corporate or leading teams or having to manage up, which I think we could transplant to a lot of different scenarios, right? We're kind of
Yes.
trying to impress certain people, inspire others, what have you. But Corliss, I'm just going to keep it simple so as to not go on too much. But I think leadership is ultimately inspiring possibilities in others, big or
Mm,
small, inspiring possibilities in others. When you're a leader, you're leading other people, and if you can help them realize that they have choices and potential, that's I think that's great leadership. That's leadership.
mm. Well, you're a great leader because you inspire that in me. I feel like there's so much possibilities with my presence.
There is. You already do quite a good job, but even if you already do a great job, it's like it's endless. There's fine tuning. Don't get me started. But
Absolutely.
anyway, yes.
Become more of who you are already. Yeah, just keep building on that.
Yeah.
Now, if there was, I'm going to ask you, usually I just say if I usually ask my guests to share a book or a podcast
Oh
that is
yeah.
specific to just anything, something that's been life-changing for them. But
Yeah.
I feel like this topic specifically, it's quite a new way of framing this.
Yeah.
Is there a book that you would really recommend or a podcast that people need to listen to, tune into, read that is specific about presence and science and building on it?
Yeah, so I'm happy to have a few recommendations. I'll recommend one. It's funny, on one end it's a little too kind of corporate, I'm thinking of, and then another end is like way too scientific when I think of books that
Okay.
have been formative. But there's a good one, especially for the females, among your listeners, and I know that there are many. There's a book called Likeable Badass. It's by a woman, Allison Fergale. She's super cool, but also a scholar, from Stanford. And her book is not 100% on presence, but it's about, and it's geared toward women. Men can read it. I read it and it's great, but it's really geared toward women about being that likable badass. How do you balance competence, right? Coming in strong and I'm credible, what have you, and warmth. And she just does a beautiful, beautiful job, and it's a pretty easy read too. So, likable
Sounds
badass.
like it sounds like it's kind of the balance between the masculine energy and feminine energy and bringing those together.
There's very much an aspect of that, and she has all these different stories, but it's like I have spreadsheets of notes from it. I'm in there on
Um,
a spreadsheet, what have you. But likable badass, highly recommend it. I think
okay.
your
Okay.
listeners would take a lot.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Because when I reviewed my notes this morning on a course that I'm in, one of the questions was, "Who are you?" And it was like in your future present self, but it was actually envisioning it and being it right now. And one of the words
Yeah,
that I actually used was that I'm a powerful badass with a soft
yeah.
heart. I'm
There
like,
you go.
that's actually who I am. That is who
Yeah,
I am. Just stepping into that.
right.
Okay, the final closing question based on everything that you've gone through in your life. So you've had many highs, many lows, many lessons, many things that you've experienced. If there was one final piece of advice that you could leave with people, what would it be?
Oh, let's see. I immediately think, okay, my lived experience. Um, I think it would ultimately be, it's funny, this is kind of new for me to say, not so much like some new idea, but I've never said this before. You know, I would say treat others as innocent until proven guilty, meaning
Hmm.
treat others with respect, with leeway, knowing that they have their own experience that we don't know so much about. Maybe these are classic notions, Corliss,
Hmm.
but I think that showing up with curiosity and compassion, no matter who it is, whether it's the clerk at a store or it's someone important to you. I think that would be good advice. I learned that in observation of my older brother. I used to think, gosh, this guy can make anyone feel comfortable around him. And he gained a lot of, well, presence, but just power, not maybe the traditional, but just power as a person, as a liked person because of it. So that's where I'm drawing my inspiration. And I've modeled that throughout my life, and it's worked it's enriched my life and, quote unquote, worked for me in building relationships. So I would just say, um, probably leave with that.
Oh, such a great closing thought. Thank you so much for being here today. I can't think of one other place in the world I'd rather be right now than sharing this conversation with you, my friend. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Corliss. It's an honor and pleasure.